Hi guys, so in this video I'm going to kind of talk through how to add cards in Duelyst, well in our Duelyst project I should say, and for this thing it shouldn't be too difficult. If you're not like a mad developer that's been doing it for 3 years or whatever, it probably shouldn't matter because we don't actually need to change any real code to get this going. So the first thing we probably want to do is we want to go into the game and we want to get some inspiration. We want to figure out what card we want to build. And incidentally, if you look here, there's a custom card creator already in the game. There's a reason why I'm not going to use this. Well, there's a few reasons why I'm not going to use this. But the main one is that I think it's kind of for the future of the project, it'd be a good idea if people develop the right skills. And in the future, there's not going to be like an in-game editor. In the future, people will create new cards by editing Json files. So I figure that people might as well get in the practice now, and that will be useful in the future. So yeah, if we want to create a new card, a new Duelyst card, we want to add it to the game. The general thing I would recommend to do first is to go to the collection page and see if you can figure out what some of these abilities do, and then see if you can figure out how you could translate them into actual Duelyst cards. So some of these cards are broken. Some of the text on these cards is really confusing. Like I don't know why, for example, they needed in the description to have the attack and the health of the unit when you can just see it here, but you know, that's kind of what the original creators of this project did. And yeah, there's some language barrier difficulties as well, which you can see on some of these cards. But there are a couple of cards I was going to point out today. So if anyone feels like a project that they want to get in, you know, they want to try and add something, contribute to this project in a meaningful way, hopefully by the end of this video you'll feel confident in creating your own Duelyst cards and adding them to the game the proper way using GitHub and stuff. And the card I'd like to point out for that is this 2-mana lightning bolt. If you look at the enemy the unit text, it's 8 units hit enemy hero. Again, not very good English, but I believe that's saying deal 8 damage to the enemy hero. If you think about it, that's basically spiral technique. And another one here, applies a power buff with 6 units AP increment for own troop. So AP stands for attack points. So again, if you think about what this card is, that sounds very much like you could change that into something like a shadow reflection, right? You just bump it up to 3 mana, you change the art, you change the name, and you got a shadow reflection. The card I was going to try and do today, so you've got this 1-mana fireball, you know, 4 units hit an enemy troop. I was going to try and be a little bit ambitious, and I was going to try and convert this into Phoenix Fire, obviously the Songhai spell. So that means we'd have to change the mana, we'd have to change the name, we'd have to change the icon, we'd have to change the card text, and also, as well as the card text, we would have to add to the card text, right? Because Phoenix Fire doesn't just hit an enemy troop, and by troop they mean enemy minion. Phoenix Fire can also hit your own minions, and it can also hit your own face, and it can also hit you know, the enemy general in the face as well. So that's the card we're going to try and edit today. So let's quit out of this. So obviously when developing you want to have your repository set up. So as you can see here, I'm currently in a new branch called Add Phoenix Fire. So that's where I'll be working, and we'll commit to this branch later. So the first thing I'll want to do is I'll want to go into the Duelers kind of thing. And again, I know what to look for just because I've done this a lot of times now, is that the first thing we want to go into is server, resources, and then you can see here you got minions and spells. We want to create a spell, right? So let's open up spells, and the card I was looking at was called Lightning Bolt or something, wasn't it? There you are, Lightning Bolt. So let's open this up. And we'll try and understand what this is doing and how we can change it to be a oh sorry, it wasn't lightning bolt, that was the spiral technique one, wasn't it? What was the card I was going to change? Was it frostbolt or something? Oh, was it fireball? Yes, it was fireball, wasn't it? So I was going to try and change fireball to phoenix fire. So we can look at this and we can try and figure out the changes we'd need to make this into a fireball. So the first thing to do is notice the name. The name is fireball. That's wrong. We want it to be phoenix fire. And because I can't spell phoenix, I'm just going to copy and paste it from the internet. So we can just do this, phoenix fire. The card ID we're going to set to phoenix fire. However, we're going to get rid of the space in the middle. So it's just phoenix fire. The description, well, the description should be the same as it is in Duelyst, right? Because we're going to try and recreate this Duelyst card. So let's copy and paste that here. And then you can see sprite name, icon F6 Frostfire. So what we need to do to figure out what sprite we need is we need to go to client resources, and troop animations is for minions, the minion things. So for example, if I just hit Chaos Knight, that looks like there's like an ironclad or something. I don't know. In an ironclad in different colors. Now for spells, it happens to be icons where we want to go. And the spell we're trying to create is a phoenix fire, right? So you can see that these things are kind of coded in a way. So I think F2 stands for faction 2, which sure enough is Songhai. So what we want to do is we kind of want to come down here. So these are artifacts. We don't want artifacts, we want spells, right? So sometimes it takes a bit of time to find the what we want, but a general spell F2, I would imagine. Is it here? Look at that, there we are, Phoenix Fire. Lovely jubbly. Okay, cool, so we found it. So what I want to do is I want to hit rename, control copy, control C to copy there, and we just get that. We don't want the PNG bit at the end, but we just want that. Okay, so the spell ID, we're going to change that to the card ID. Actually, as a general rule, I like to describe what the effect is with the spell ID. So we'll call it deal 3 to anything. And now we need to figure out how to change this to make it into a Phoenix Fire. So the first thing we might notice is HP change. So that stands for health, right? And we can see a -4 here. So clearly, it seems like a good change would be to -3. And then quickly going down here, we want to change the mana of the spell, right? So mana point is going to be 2 because Phoenix Fire is 2 mana. Price, we're just going to set that to 100. I don't actually, well, price isn't really relevant at the moment, but I've just been setting cards to 100 for just for the hell of it, really. And then remaining number, I have absolutely no idea what remaining number does, but in all the other cards I've seen that work, it has 20, so I just put 20. I don't care why it works. That just seems to be why it works, or that just seems to be a number that works, I should say. Now, because Phoenix Fire is just a spell that deals 1 damage and it does it immediately, you can see that you've got duration here. And that's 1, so that kind of makes sense, right? Well, actually, I don't know whether that makes sense. If it says duration 1, that might mean the health comes back at the end of the turn, so we might have to test that. Duration might need to be 0 or something. But one way we can perhaps test our understanding is if we look at what was it? Not client. We want to be in server. Resources, spell cards. So if we look at, what was it? Was it Lightning Bolt? 8 units hit enemy hero. So this card, I presume, is not like you get the health back at the end of the turn, right? This is probably just still 8 damage. So this has a duration of 1 as well. So that's probably correct, right? This duration thing. Now, So this here is so when you look at spells, so this is a bit confusing, but I'll explain it as best I can. Is that all the kind of effects in this game are called spells. So you've got cards that are of type spell, and then you've got spells as an actual thing. So it's a bit weird, but you just have to bear with it. So spells is essentially a list of effects that happen, and then the first bit is kind of describing what happens. So in the case of Phoenix Fire, what happens is somebody loses 3 life, right? Or the target loses 3 life. And then you can see here the next bit is the target, where we're defining what can be hit. So if you notice here, you've got owner here, you've got own an enemy. So basically what this is saying, because this is set to true, it's saying that this effect can hit the enemy, but it can't hit your own stuff. Now we're creating Phoenix Fire, right? So we actually want this to be true. And then you've got card type here. So this is kind of defining what can be what is a valid target for the spell. So cell is basically, you know, a square on the board. Can we you know, target a square on the board with this effect? Well, no, we can't. Can we affect heroes? Yes, we can. Can we affect minions? Yes, we can. Player, set to false. Now, I don't actually know what that means, but I'm going to set it to true anyway, because if you think about it, Phoenix Fire in Duelyst can basically target anything that is, you know, is targetable, essentially. It can hit your own face, although you very rarely want to do that, but it could. And I've just realized oh no, okay, so there we are. And I think that is probably all the changes we need to make to create Phoenix Fire. If it's not, we can go back. So the first thing I want to do is hit save as. And again, notice that all of these cards have a particular format, you know, what it is, and then .spell, .card, .json. So a really good practice is to always follow the same format when you're working. So we're going to save this as Phoenix Fire, .spell, .card, .json. Okay, cool. And then I need to go to that. Where is it? Is it here? Phoenix Fire, yes. So I need to copy this, and it needs to go into resources. So it needs to go in 2 places, which is a bit annoying, but you know, it's very early in the project. But one day we'll make this process a little bit cleaner and a little bit simpler and easier to understand. So that's all good, well and good, but how do we actually add it into the game that we can play with? Well, the simplest way that we have so far is if we go to server and then go resources, hit accounts. I'm going to delete this one because it shouldn't be here. We're going to go John Doe account. So the John Doe account has a bunch of stuff in it, unsurprisingly. And what we want to do is we want to add the Phoenix Fire to the account, right? So we've created the Phoenix Fire card, but we haven't, and then there's a player called John Doe, but John Doe doesn't actually own the card Phoenix Fire, right? It's not in their collection. So this step now is simply about adding the card to the collection. So what we want to do, oh, actually there is one quick step I forgot to mention when you're working, is that this is JSON format. So what you would like, what is a good idea is if you come to like a website like jlint.com and then hit validate JSON, it will very quickly tell you if you've made any mistakes in the JSON format. So for example, if I'm missing a comma here and hit validate JSON, it tells me that there's an error. So this is a useful way just to make sure that you haven't fucked up the formatting, right? So that's another little tip. So anyway, we want to add this card to John Doe. So I kind of want to scroll down or scroll up. I want to find where the spells are. So you'll have to bear with me as I find, that's a spell, that's a spell, that's a spell, That's a spell, 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 spell. So the reason I want to scroll up and I want to put it in the very first place. And the reason for that is just because it's just an organization thing, right? That if I'm adding a card, I want to kind of make it the first thing in the list rather than just in the middle of the list somewhere. It's just an organizational thing, but it's not strictly necessary to do this. I'm just a little fastidious, I suppose. Spell, come on, bloody hell, spells. Dispel, ugh. Okay, I'm going to go too far now, and then we're going to be in minions. Yeah, minion there, bugger, gone too far. Minion, there we are, there's spells. So this is the first spell here, all attack. What we're now going to do is we're going to come in here, and we're going to copy basically everything that we have here into the John Doe account, like so. We will neaten it up a little bit because, you know, it's always a good idea to neaten things up. So we will indent it a little bit, like so. And then we need to add a comma here. And then hopefully that is going to work. So now if I come to my environment and we hit run client, now because we've added it to the John Doe account, I obviously need to log in to John Doe. And then if I go collection, with any luck, Phoenix Fire should be the very first spell that we see. So there we are, Phoenix Fire, 2 mana. It's a little bit wonky, but that's something we can fix in a future patch. You've also noticed that you've got 1 copy as well. I don't actually know how to add 3 copies at the moment, but that's hopefully something that we can change in the future. So the next thing we want to do is we want to test this card. So at the moment, to create a new deck, you need to have 1 hero, 1 item, and 20 cards. So let's go ahead and do that now. We'll call this P Fire, because funnily enough, it's got Phoenix Fire in it. So we then click this icon here and we need to start adding things. So we need to add a general as the first thing we do. We're just going to add this one because I've used that quite a bit. I know it kind of works, this general. It's not buggy, or I don't think it is. And then we want to add the spell we want to test, which is Phoenix Fire. So obviously in the future we'll probably have more efficient methods for testing cards, but for now this is the best we've got. And now I'm just going to add some cheap cards. The reason I'm going to add cheap cards is basically because in this particular game we've created 2-draw Duelyst. So because it's 2-draw Duelyst, it makes sense just to add some cheap cards so we can very quickly cycle through and try and find that Phoenix Fire. And we just need one more thing. Now we hit save. Oh, so I need to add an item. The item can be anything. So we'll just add an assassination dagger. No idea what that does. And then we've got this green tick here, which is telling me that the deck is valid. We need to save it. And I think we also need to click this little controller icon. Don't know what that controller icon does, but I think we need to click it. Then go to single player, custom game, kill hero, load the deck, P-Fire. And so now I just want to play minions until I find the Phoenix Fire, right? Ooh, there we are, got a little bit lucky. So we've got Phoenix Fire, so if I click it, we can experiment, right? So if I hit this minion, it's gone down to 7 health, so that's pretty good. Now because we know that there's only 1 Phoenix Fire in the game, we're going to exit out of this, and I'm going to try and play it again. The next test, because you want to, you always want to test what you're doing, right? We want to make sure that we're actually adding good cards and not, things that don't work. So I hit the enemy, was it the enemy general I hit, or was it an enemy minion? I can't actually remember. But the next test can be to hit the like one of our ally minions or something, right? And if that works, then the card probably works. Probably being not a very good word in software engineering. But yeah, okay. Ah, there we go. Okay, so we've got Phoenix Fire again. So this is our minion, right? So if we target that, it indeed did 3 damage, and we've also got the effect there. So it looks like our Phoenix Fire works. Off stream, well, off the YouTube video, I'll do a little bit more testing with it. I'll like try and hit my general with it and check that that works. But so far so good. It looks like we've created Phoenix Fire, which is very, very good. Okay, cool. So we're going to come out of that. So now we're going to do the kind of final step, which is to kind of commit our changes to the repository so other people can download and test our changes themselves. Now, the first thing, you know, whenever working with GitHub, you always want to check the files and whether what is here makes sense. So, for example, the John Doe account has Phoenix Fire added to it. That makes a lot of sense. We've added a Phoenix Fire card spell to the resources spell cards Phoenix Fire, right? So to resources spell cards we've added Phoenix Fire. But if you may remember that we actually copied and pasted this to another position, right? So actually we should see 3 changes here and we only see 2 changes. And the reason for that, or the fixture, is that we need to change the git ignore. Again, in the future, in the long term, we'll probably have all this git ignore sorted, so you won't have to do this. But we need to whitelist the server resources spell cards repository. So basically, git ignore just basically tells Git to ignore a bunch of folders that you don't want to upload to your repository, but we do actually want to upload our resources to our spell cards, right? So the exclamation mark in the front means that it's on the whitelist, as in Git shouldn't ignore this. So if we hit save there and then come out of this, we should see another Phoenix Fire. And sure enough, server resources spell cards phoenixfire.spell.json.card. Excellent. So another good practice is to add things, like to commit things in stages. So we're going to commit the git ignore. And let's quickly play the music again, just because it'll cancel out some of my droning. Where am I? Here. So now we're going to add the card. Again, this is a separate commit. This just makes it easier to work with. Like if there's a mistake or things have to change, it's much easier to deal with multiple small commits than it is to deal with one big commit, which is also why I'm creating one card at a time rather than trying to create 20 cards all at once. So let's give ourselves a good message for this. So adding p fire card. That explains what that does, right? Commit to add Phoenix Fire. So add Phoenix Fire is our branch, remember? And then the last thing we will do is add p fire to John Doe accounts. Then we commit to Phoenix Fire. Okay, cool. So now if we go to the repository and I hit refresh, we've got 18 branches right now. We've got 6 pull requests, so quite a lot of stuff's going on. You can see that earlier today I was working on Veil Hunter, Flameblood Warlock, adding some generals and the Tempest spell. But if you look here, we don't actually have a open pull request for our new card Phoenix Fire. I'd like to change that. So if actually, sorry, that's not quite what I wanted to show you. What I wanted to show you is if I go to branches, obviously my branches are listed here. So if I hit view more of your branches, you may notice that there isn't actually add Phoenix Fire here. And the reason it's not here is because we haven't published it. So at the moment, my work is only on my computer, but it's no point being on my computer. That defies the entire point of source control. So we want to hit publish. And then publish is going to upload all my work to Git. So there you are. It takes a little while, but not too long. So if I come over here, sure enough, there you are, 19 branches. So now what we want to do is we want to create a pull request because we want to add this lovely new stuff to the game. This is a little thing that you always need to switch to the duelers, and then we want to add a comment. So let's just say add Phoenix Fire card to game, play tested, right? Because we did test the card, but we should probably add lightly play tested, right? Because we didn't test the card extensively, we tested it a little bit. And then we can create a pull request. And yeah, that is the entire process really behind adding a Duelyst card into our project at the moment. Again, as things get better, eventually there will probably be less steps over time. This entire process will become easier. But if you ever need help with kind of the stuff, you can always check out the Discord and just ask people. The main thing to obviously get done is creating these kind of these JSON cards that have the correct effect, right? This is 90% of the work here. The rest is just extra fluff. So yeah, there you are. Hopefully you guys found this educational, and hopefully you guys will consider creating your own cards in the in our little project. All right, take care guys and have fun.